Story 1. I am one of those people who loves what they do and is objectively successful by most people's standards. Honestly, it took a ton of work, and I spent many years feeling incredibly lost. I used to think something was wrong with me because I didn't have one big passion or clear path. I liked a lot of things: writing, psychology, technology, design, but none of it pointed to a single obvious career. I kept jumping between roles that felt okay but never really made sense. I started to think I was just indecisive. My turning point came about 6 months ago during a one-on-one with my boss. She asked, "If you didn't have to work for money, what kind of problems would you still want to solve?" I completely blanked. I couldn't identify what motivates me. The uncomfortable silence stayed with me for weeks. Around the same time, a friend mentioned how a career assessment had helped her recognize repeated patterns of behavior. So I decided to dig deeper into understanding how I actually work and not just what sounded cool. I took the Pigment Career Assessment Test, which is absolutely amazing. There are others like Socanu, UScience, and StrengthsFinder that you could try as well. I did some serious self-reflection. The results helped me realize I have what you might call a generalist mind. I'm energized by connecting dots between different fields, simplifying complex topics, and creating resources that genuinely help people. This explained why traditional specialized roles never quite fit. This led me to explore learning experience design, a field I had previously overlooked. I have now made the switch, and it is the first time work has felt natural rather than forced. I get to design workshops, translate complex concepts into stories and visuals, and blend creativity with analytical thinking. I now deeply love what I do. I wake up looking forward to work, and when I come home, I don't feel completely depleted or drained. A few things I wish someone had told me earlier: pay attention to what comes easily to you. We often dismiss our natural strengths because they feel effortless. Also, think about how your brain prefers to work. Some people thrive in chaos, others need structure. Some love deep focus while others need variety. These preferences matter more than job titles. Career assessments can be incredibly helpful, but they are not the only path. You could and should also try informational interviews, volunteering in different contexts, or working with a career coach. The key is being willing to do the sometimes uncomfortable work of honestly examining what energizes you versus what drains you. Good luck. Story 2. I realized I did not have a career at 50, just a job, so I stopped caring. I am still motivated to do a good job, and I get paid, so I leave it at that. From 4:30 to 5 o'clock, I am done for the day. I was not always like this, but I feel a burden has been lifted, and I am actually more productive because of it. Story 3. I took my time. I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare, but wasn't sure what. So I got my emergency medical technician certification, secured an entry-level hospital job, and took general education classes at the local community college. I observed what each specialty did day in and day out. I learned who earned what salary and identified the best route to achieve my goals. Took a while, but now I am a nurse on a medical helicopter. I have no student loans and life is good. I don't think we should expect teenagers to know what they want to do for the rest of their lives. Story 4. When I have to cover for someone on vacation or sick, I see how much work they do not do, and I cannot understand why not. The company I work for constantly reaches out to me for input and ideas. They have gone above and beyond for me. I am the highest paid merchandiser I have ever heard of, and they praise me for exceeding expectations. The thing is, I am doing my job exactly as it was assigned to me. Everyone else cuts corners, and I just do not. Why? Because I could cut corners too and be home earlier, but I care. I will not lie, it is a hard job, but someone has to keep you fed. If it were not for this company taking care of me and valuing me, I would not care. Story 5. First stage. I took some computer science courses in high school. It was the only homework that did not feel like homework. Second stage. After about 8 years of working in technology, I grew tired, bored, unsure of myself, and somewhat lonely. Housing was too expensive for me to afford a place, so I decided to get a Master of Business Administration. I did product management for about 5 years. It was mediocre. A business school friend asked me to start a business together. I agreed. Being a startup of 4 people, I did both the technical programming side and the business side. It turns out the programming side was what I liked. I just needed a break, a change of scenery, some maturity, and a wife. I was no longer lonely, so the loneliness of programming was not an issue to make me appreciate programming again. Now I make good money and enjoy going to work. Took me a while, but better late than never. Story 6. Being perfectly honest, I stumbled into it. I don't have a degree. I had worked in customer service in one form or another for 11 years, and that was the only kind of job I had ever had. I was extremely burnt out, to the point that it was impacting my physical health. By the end, I was calling out sick at least once a week with either migraines or stress-related illness. I ended up getting fired for absenteeism. After a day or two of worrying that I had just lost my source of income, along with feelings of low self-worth, I started job hunting with a goal. Whatever I do next, I swear it will not be customer service. I found a job listing for an animal care technician position at a facility that breeds laboratory rodents. No degree was required. No public interaction. I have been there 7 years now. I moved up to team lead. I helped the facility earn and maintain accreditation through the Association for Assessment and Accreditation of Laboratory Animal Care International, meaning the care we give to our animals meets some of the highest standards worldwide. Our rodents are used in research for cancer, diabetes, obesity, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, autoimmune disorders, chronic illnesses, and many other major medical fields. Animals from our facility were used by Pfizer in the development of their COVID-19 vaccine. My work isn't glamorous, but it is contributing to better lives for people all over the world. And I don't have to put on a customer service smile while someone mistreats me to feel better about themselves. Story 7. I grew up around emergency service personnel. I thought it was the coolest job ever. My mother had a well-paying job, but she worked in an office all day. I did not think that was very exciting. I decided to become an emergency service personnel and absolutely loved it. It offered so much freedom. Story 8. I asked myself what I wanted to get out of it, paycheck aside. Would it fulfill these long-term goals of mine? If yes, keep going. If not, reevaluate. I have also made many moves as those goals shift and change. Story 9. By doing a variety of jobs I did not enjoy, it helps you figure out what you do and do not like spending your day doing. Story 10. I literally did the only thing I have ever been good at: analyzing books. I became an English professor. I make basically nothing in terms of money, but I wake up every day to a job I love. For someone like me with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, there was never a question of doing a random job to get by. I did for many years, but when I realized that it would kill me inside to do this for the rest of my life, I went back to school, earned my degrees, and now work in academia. Having been able to do this in my 30s, I fully recognize the privilege I have, and I am grateful for it every day. My 20s were rough and scattered. Academia is far from perfect, but it suits me more than any other job I can possibly imagine. Unless there is a job following Pedro Pascal around, I am happy with what I do. Story 11. It was clear to me that I was going to be a computer guy from a very young age. I was obsessed with computers ever since kindergarten. In spite of being in a very tech-averse family, I still managed to build my first one when I was 13. So the career in information technology was a very natural one. I saw the movie Hackers when I was 8 years old and thought, those are the coolest people ever. I want to be that when I grow up. There are not as many rollerblades and trench coats as I was promised, and none of my coworkers look like Angelina Jolie, but other than that, it is pretty awesome. Story 12. Being proactive about fixing what I was not happy with helped a lot. I stopped working on unproductive projects, stopped surrounding myself with naysayers, and focused on work that energized me. That shift gave me clarity on the kind of career I wanted. Story 13. From a young age, I have always loved capturing pictures, drawing, being intrigued by computers, and having a passion for cars. I wanted to be an air hostess but could not. I studied graphic design, became a photographer, and grew from there. Now, I use all of my skills in the automotive company where I work and love it. It did not happen overnight. took a lot of hard work and dedication, but it will not stop here. I am still keen on learning another skill and incorporating it. Story 14. I was an English as a second language teacher and it was not working out. I felt drained after just a few lessons. I decided to try a different path. I looked at what I did in my free time that could be used in a job. I realized that I liked playing strategy games and making Excel tables to figure out the most effective strategy, so I focused on becoming proficient in Excel. 10 years later, I am a senior data analyst. Story 15. I got lucky. I became obsessed with cellular and molecular biology, genetics, evolution, and immunology in high school. I kept digging into it during my undergraduate studies. I got very burned out during my Doctor of Philosophy and postdoctoral research and took a few breaks along the way but always felt hungry to return to it. I entered biotechnology when it was booming and everyone was overhiring. I love that it pays me and that I am working for a greater cause. But day to day, I am driven by the puzzle of it all. How did the experiment play out? What does it mean? What should I try next? Even the monotony of laboratory bench work is something I slip into easily. I queue up some podcasts, go into autopilot mode, text my boyfriend to let the dog out, and work until 8 p.m. without realizing it. I emerge from my cave regularly to make sure I am aligning my tasks with what my organization needs. Something about the work cadence is very dopamine-linked for me. I am not claiming to have a particularly good work ethic. It is just lucky that tasks I find mentally satisfying are tasks I get paid for. Luck aside, I think an attitude that helps me is taking satisfaction in a job well done even if nothing exciting happens from it. There is something really enjoyable about completing the mini task you set for yourself that day. You cannot control how people react to it or if it is the experiment that gives the results everyone is hoping for, but you can control doing a job well done no matter what. Story 16. I've worked a lot of jobs I really liked. I think it's just about your mindset and managing expectations. Obviously, work is work, but it can still be enjoyable. I haven't had many jobs that I hated. I think when you see the value you add to society by building a bridge or house or something, at least you have something tangible left. I've worked in many industries, and they are all interesting in their own way. Story 17. It started as a special interest, and before I knew it, I was a subject matter expert and advocate in the field. I work in harm reduction. My brother is an addict. My special interest was getting him help and keeping him alive. He is currently in prison, but he is alive and sober today. Story 18. I think I realized it when I stopped trying to turn every passion into a job. I have always liked design, coding, and visual work, but for years it was all client work, deadlines, and pressure. One day I just started making things for myself with no plan and no goals, just because I felt like it. Now I work on smaller projects at my own pace, and it finally feels right. Story 19. I'm in information technology and technology, more like systems engineering than development, though these days you always do a bit of both. I'm going to be 50 this year and still really enjoy it. There is massive pressure on our industry from chief executive officers who want cheap labor, and the lack of formalized barriers to entry and training curriculum forces everyone to kind of learn everything, even though you cannot. I hate the fact we do not have a licensed profession. Computers are core to life now and deserve that spot we reserve for medicine, law, and engineering. But overall, I like being paid to solve problems every day and hope I can keep doing it until I retire. Funny thing is that I stumbled into it. I have always been interested in the tinkering nature of technology rather than software development. Plus, I am not strong in mathematics, so I never really thought of doing traditional computer science. I wound up majoring in chemistry and getting a part-time help desk and technical support job at the university to pay for school. Slowly, after realizing I would need a Doctor of Philosophy degree to do anything mildly interesting, lucrative, or secure in chemistry, the part-time job became nearly full-time. At that time, they were desperate for student assistants to take on work, meaning free labor, so I volunteered for a lot of projects. 30 years later, I am pretty far along the technical track in my field and still enjoy the work. One caveat: one of the reasons I am still pretty happy is that I have realized there is no linear career growth in this field. In any other corporate function, there is a well-worn path. You start out as one of 50 people in a new hire class of generic business students, get assigned a random paper pushing or trade show circuit job, claw your way out of the bucket of crabs to supervisor or lead, then move on to clearly defined management steps where you do not do the work anymore. I have tried the technical manager path hoping it would be a hybrid of work and management. No, it is just politics, backstabbing, and fighting for your team who does not realize what you are doing. So, to stay technical, I have had to constantly keep learning so I can continue to be in demand. That is an issue as you get older and pick up responsibilities, but it is required to keep the job you love. Story 20. I never planned to make piano my career. Just like hiking a new trail without a map. You enjoy the surroundings and any new people you meet in the moment and avoid things that could harm you. Before you know it, you are already in a new place, planning the next new place. Story 21. I learned to love the job I had, rather than figuring out what I love and then trying to make a career out of it. Story 22. I was good at it from the start. I did not need weeks of training or trial and error to figure things out afterwards. It was so easy for me, I improved the way they did things. I grew faster and higher than anyone else there before. More importantly, no matter the shifts or the number of days without a day off, it did not matter to me. I thoroughly enjoyed doing it in any situation. Story 23. I didn't know I wanted to be a web developer. It wasn't a dream I had growing up, and no one around me worked in technology. For a long time, I thought people who loved their jobs were either lying or just happened to stumble into something lucky. My path was messy. I tried many things, some out of interest, some just to pay bills. Retail, customer support, freelance writing. Each one taught me something, but none felt like a place I wanted to stay. I wasn't miserable, but I felt detached from what I was doing. The work felt small, disposable. What changed everything wasn't a job or a class. It was a side project I became obsessed with. I had an idea for a small website, nothing important, just a fake brand, a joke really, and I wanted to make it look cool. I thought it would take an hour. I ended up staying up all night learning cascading style sheet transitions and JavaScript just to make it scroll the way I imagined. I didn't notice how tired I was until the sun came up. That's when it clicked. This is how I want to feel when I work. Locked in, curious, in flow. I didn't become a developer the next day. I still had to keep doing whatever job I was in at the time. But after that night, I started building little sites constantly. Simple stuff, experimental layouts, animations that broke everything. I didn't care. Felt like play. Gradually, as I improved, I realized I could make money doing this thing I was already doing for fun. That felt amazing. Now, a few years in, I work full-time in web development. I still feel that spark when I solve something annoying or launch something I'm proud of. It's not perfect. It gives me room to grow, to experiment, to mix logic and design in a way that keeps me sharp. I feel like myself when I'm building. What I learned is, don't chase a title. Chase the moments when you forget to check the clock. Pay attention to what pulls you in when no one is watching. For me, it wasn't about finding my passion. It was about noticing what I kept returning to, even when it made no sense on paper. Don't worry if you feel behind or unsure. Most people do. The ones who figure it out are just the ones who keep testing things until something sticks. That's all I did. I gave my curiosity room and followed where it led. Story 24. Parents. When I was a child, I was fascinated by computers, not programming, but only the areas of information technology. Since I had no skills in math or coding, I earned my bachelor's degree in literature because I love books. However, there were few jobs and low wages. I struggled. My parents noticed this and paid for my master's degree in general computer science. They literally forced me to do it. I currently work in the field of information technology where coding and mathematics are not essential, and it fascinates me every day. I cannot imagine doing any other activity. My parents recognized the boy who liked computers. Story 25. Well, I always wanted to be a teacher or a kindergarten teacher. After the exams we have to take to enter a university, I had a decent grade to enter nursing university or to become a midwife, a speech therapist, or even an occupational therapist. I told myself I was going to try nursing, and if I didn't like it, I would try my best next year. So I did, and I was mesmerized. I remember the first lesson I watched was anatomy, and I loved cardiology. I ended up never looking back and decided to go into cardiology nursing. I love my job. I even loved working at a nursing home while trying to gain some experience to work at a hospital. Simple as that. Story 26. Everything related to software has always interested me. I discovered information technology and studied computer science. Now, my hobby has become my profession. I do work I enjoy for a living and apply my experience in my home laboratory, a learning environment at home with a small server to experiment and explore. Story 27. Of the three careers I was interested in when transitioning from high school to college, computers, culinary arts, and architecture. Computers had the best long-term job opportunities and pay, so I chose that one. That was almost 20 years ago. Nowadays, it is probably the least stable of the three. Story 28. I really like airplanes. Turned out I really like flying them too. Then I learned that you can be inexperienced and still be a pilot. Then I found out it pays very well. The moral of the story is that I got really lucky. My 5-year-old self would get wide-eyed every time an airplane went by. Story 29. Realizing that it is not the career that matters, but how well you can make your life outside of it. Having good coworkers and non-toxic management also really helps. Story 30. I did not know what I wanted to do until I dropped out of university and started welding. I fell in love with it and still love it. Story 31. Those tests have been and always will be a complete joke. Source: back when I was a kid, I used to make a bunch of spoofed websites exploiting people's emotions like this to push ads and earn affiliate money when I was still too young to work legally. 99% of those sites exist for profit and usually contain a bunch of garbage. I can only imagine, now a decade later with the rise of artificial intelligence, how much easier people can do this. Easy money. Story 32. I am a teacher. I realized this early on because I admired all my teachers and wanted to be like them. I started volunteer coaching right after high school and was good at it. Obviously, my job can be challenging sometimes, as any job can be, but overall, there is nothing else I would rather do for a living. Story 33. In the 1990s, when I was a teenager, I realized I liked programming, which was the only thing I was good at. Now I am 43 and still enjoy it most days, more than I would enjoy anything else, especially for the pay. Story 34. I've known since I was 8 when I went to my first concert, and it was just set for me. I love being a sound engineer and event planner. Story 35. I sell on eBay for a living. This became a career for me out of necessity because I was fired from my old job. I wanted to be self-employed for a while, and getting fired was the best way to make that happen. I make more money than I did at my old job, and I love the freedom. My husband has cancer, and I appreciate that this work allows me to be as flexible as I need. I could not imagine working a full-time job while dealing with this cancer. Story 36. Honestly, I just picked whatever I was best at in high school and ran with it. Now I am 4 years into my teaching degree and I cannot wait to teach full-time. Story 37. I sort of fell into it. I was working as a sales assistant at a local television station. The station manager knew I was not going to go into sales and suggested I follow the sales production team to learn how to shoot and edit. That was 25 years ago, and I have had an amazing journey. I love editing videos. There is satisfaction in taking a pile of footage and creating something cohesive and cool with it. I get to meet new clients, collaborate with different people, and bring my creative vision to fruition. I have settled into a solid 9-to-5 editing for a group of entertainment networks, not any major networks, and spend my days watching movies and television shows to create promos like mini trailers. I have done music videos, concert DVDs, event highlight reels, sports reels, sketch comedy shorts, short-form documentaries, just about everything. I am not in the highest tier of my profession, but I would honestly do exactly what I am doing now for the rest of my life if I could. Now the downside. There are days when I am just not feeling creative. Those are the hardest days because you have to force it by going through the motions and hoping the next day you are more inspired to approach it differently. Outside of my 9-to-5, I have some freelance clients who can be demanding. I might be enjoying my Sunday afternoon and suddenly get an email about a project due Tuesday that I have to start immediately. but they pay well, so it is not really a complaint since I know a lot of people would love to be in my position. Story 38. In the early 1990s, when I was a kid in elementary school, our classroom won a computer as part of a contest that the public broadcasting service was running. The computer ran Microsoft Disk operating system. On rainy days, we stayed inside for recess and played with Pogs or board games. I don't think anyone ever completed a single game of Mousetrap. The computer had a small number of games, which got old fast. I got tired of dying from dysentery and decided to explore what else I could do. After discovering that the computer understood certain words like if and date, I found I could get a full list of commands by running help and started trying them all, including deltree. Bad things happened, and I got in a lot of trouble. While in timeout, I thought it was amazing that I could break a computer without physically damaging it. I went to the library and learned more about the disk operating system and computers in general. In middle school, I made friends with some kids in band class whose fathers worked for Red Hat. They gave me disks with Red Hat version 7.1 on them. I installed it on a computer I found in a church dumpster and learned about Linux, programming, networking, and hacking. Being able to instruct a computer to do things felt like a magical power. Eventually, I learned that you could do this professionally and get paid for it, which sounded unbelievable. About 10 years later, I got my first job as a Linux engineer at an internet service provider. After working for multiple companies over the years, I have since become a site reliability engineer for a major technology company. While I dislike corporate culture, I still enjoy the technical work. I love problem solving, and being able to teach machines how to think is very rewarding. Story 39. Finance. I trade the market, and honestly, the money is great. It is really fun to talk about finance and see market reactions. How did I figure it out? I did not. I searched for the top-paying careers in my country, and finance was third or fourth behind medical specialties in law. So I chose the one that looked the easiest, and indeed it was. Story 40. Start by volunteering in areas you know you do like. That is how I began my career. I am currently a political strategist living in Washington, District of Columbia. I started because I walked into a local campaign office my senior year of college in Florida because I wanted to volunteer. I realized I loved it, was good at it, and could get paid for it. It felt great to find a job that checked all the boxes, and I have never looked back. Although I did leave Florida. Story 41. Personally, it is because I own my own business, and if I am not doing what I love to do there, then we have a problem. Story 42. I think the biggest problem we face is inertia. We put up with all sorts of difficulties because change is scary, can feel like a big risk, and introduces a lot of uncertainty. When it comes to careers, you are more than likely not to find your dream job right away. My top tip is to make yourself open to change. If you have youth and time on your side, do not be afraid of trying out a few different career paths. You are not a failure if your first choice does not work out. Use those lessons and experiences to find the next role. It took me almost 14 years and 6 different jobs before I found one that I genuinely see as a career I love. Story 43. I stumbled blindly into it while panicking because I did not know which major to pick at transfer orientation and could not go undecided. Story 44. My job aligns with my values. The exact mechanics of the day-to-day are not my passion, but I love the goals I work toward and the mentality needed to succeed in my role. When I held positions requiring me to work toward a bottom line I did not care about, or to act in ways that felt unnatural to me, such as pushing an extended warranty onto someone who did not need it in a sales role, I struggled with those positions. Story 45. I did many things I did not like before I figured it out. I started in retail sales, later worked in healthcare informatics, management, and administration. I could have gone into project management and consulting, but I disliked the passive-aggressive meetings and the time spent not actually helping anyone. I went back to become a registered nurse in my late 20s and now work in oncology, which is the best job I have ever had. It is also hard, and I know that my time as a bedside nurse is limited. The job is physically demanding, and without a graduate education or a less physically intense nursing role, it can be difficult later in one's career. Story 46. When I went to school, I asked myself 3 questions. What am I good at? What do I enjoy about it? What part of it makes money? I am good with computers. I like spreadsheets, and since a spreadsheet is a representation of a database and databases have value, I went to school to become a database developer. I graduated and entered the industry. Once I had my first job, I tried different roles and asked myself what part of the software world is important but nobody wants to do. I ended up doing quality assurance automation. 10 years later, I work remotely and put in about 2 or 3 hours of effort a day, making very solid money. Story 47. I have an associate's degree and worked in the trades for a while. I saved money so I could take a few years off to explore the world and various careers. Now, I am back in school pursuing a bachelor's degree with a major that I love. Story 48. I paid attention to what I loved doing even when no one was watching, then found a way to get paid for it. Story 49. I got a union job installing fire sprinkler systems. All day, I build pipes that will save lives in case of an emergency. The feeling of satisfaction when I look back at a day's work is the best. I never planned on doing this. My father did it and he got the job. Over time, I learned to love it as I got better at my trade. Story 50. I love my job. Is it difficult, stressful, and tedious? Yes. I am a public defender, which is definitely not for the faint of heart. I went through college and law school without really understanding what was going on or whether I could handle it. I have now ended up at a place where the pay is enough to cover bills and allows me disposable income to do whatever I want. Story 51. Honestly, I just followed the topics I couldn't stop talking about and stayed up researching for fun. Once I realized I kept helping people with it just because I thought maybe this is the thing. Story 52. I was lucky enough to turn a hobby I loved into a full-time career 17 years ago. My friend owns the business and was working solo but recognized my talent and drive, so he brought me on board. I have never regretted a day of it. We have a large workshop, skilled part-time help when needed, and share a great working partnership that has not harmed our friendship. We keep things simple regarding bills, splitting them equally. I am always paid on time and in full, and we even get to take work trips out of state occasionally. Since it's just us in our shop, we can watch a lot of media online to keep the days feeling short. I live in the adjacent building, and we eat well when I feel like cooking. Last week, we had chicken birria tacos. It has been an excellent arrangement. I often compare my situation to that of several close friends who work a few doors down at my favorite local bar and restaurant. Their situation is completely unstable and volatile. Despite being in business for 45 years and having two competent sons who want to take over management, the elderly owner runs the place poorly. He docks pay, delays paychecks, demands erratic unscheduled hours, cancels or announces events on a whim, and is quite skilled at driving away longtime customers and staff. I wish they had it as good as I do. Story 53. I spent most of my career working in the radio business. I used to listen to the radio a lot as a kid in the 1970s, and when I found out that the disc jockey on the radio actually did that for a living, I thought, wait, so that's a job? I was hooked. It took me a few years to reach the point where I was making a decent living, but even though the money was not great at times, it was always fun. I got to do some things most people only dream about. When I was laid off from my last radio job, I drifted around for a while during the global pandemic, but then I met someone who worked in the autonomous vehicle industry, specifically self-driving cars. It was another wait, so that's a job? Moment. I have been doing that for 4 years now. Story 54. Luck. Maybe? I floundered around for a long time until I was in my 40s, being productive and earning money but not doing anything I loved. I started in information technology in my 30s as a developer and hated it, but fell into a cybersecurity position at the company I worked for and instantly felt at home. Sadly, I couldn't hack, but at least I was working in the field. Now I run a team of penetration testers and work from home. Sometimes I think, I can't believe they pay me to do this. Hacking is my niche, and I am very happy I do what I do. The good thing is, as long as my hands hold up, I can keep doing it for a long time. Story 55. Tried everything that did not make me dread Mondays. It turns out Follow Your Joy was not just a bumper sticker. Story 56. Saw poker on television when Chris Moneymaker made his run. Played some in the dormitories. It seemed too easy. Never looked back. Story 57. I guess I'll be the odd one out and say total accident. I worked a lot of different dead-end jobs and failed at college mostly due to being poor. One day, a random connection from years back said he needed help from someone who knew Linux. I had experimented with it a few times because I liked messing with computers, mostly because it can be an actually pretty cheap hobby if you're creative enough, and it helped keep me sane in between sanding drywall and hauling concrete. He helped me get a foot in the door. I went from $12 an hour and being absolutely sure my long-term prospects were either dying in a ditch somewhere or prison, to a cushy desk job making $95,000 a year overnight. The random connection actually had a schizophrenic breakdown and got fired within about a week of me starting. He was an acquaintance at best, so it gave me a nice clean break. From there, I just solved problems, and I was pretty good at it. It helped that I knew how to communicate well with all the different types of people I came across, knew how to make connections, and I had good technical skills because I genuinely liked messing with computers and would constantly learn more about them for fun. I rose up the ladder real fast. Next thing I knew, the numbers just kept getting more and more ridiculous, and I shifted to a whole new set of high-quality problems like having to quit smoking and start worrying about my teeth and my retirement savings plan thanks to the new revelation that I'd probably actually live past my 30s. I never actually considered a career in the field until I was already deeply involved in it, which is honestly a huge trip given that most of the people I work with spent many years getting very fancy degrees in very competitive schools to work in this field that I just kind of haphazardly stumbled into and found I had a talent for. The one little bit of wisdom I guess I could maybe give I got from one of the only genuinely self-made wealthy people I've ever met. Iranian immigrant, got involuntarily conscripted, defected and fled to Turkey and then Canada, and then genuinely started from nothing. Fixed up cars until he had enough cash to buy a beater, fixed it and flipped it, repeated until he could buy a video rental store, made it profitable and flipped it for a nightclub, then did the same and flipped it for a bigger nightclub. He was kind of a difficult person and a little bit of a scumbag, but he was undeniably a hard worker and definitely was not born with a silver spoon. He told me the most true thing I've ever heard about wealth. It was something like this: it's pretty easy to stay where you're born. If you're born rich, you can slide by, and as long as you don't mess anything up too badly, you'll stay rich. Or middle class, or poor, or whatever. But moving up is very, very hard. And to do it, you need three things. First, you need to be a hard worker. It's hard to move up, no matter how you cut it. Being a hard worker isn't enough by itself, but it is the bare minimum. There's no easy way to slide uphill. Second, you have to work smart. There's no shortage of hard workers out there who die penniless and broken. If you don't work smart, you'll probably waste your life making someone else rich. And third, and most importantly, you have to be lucky, because you can do everything right and still fail. That stuck with me. It's probably the most brutally honest and truthful bit of life advice I've ever heard from a multimillionaire. He told me this while he was teaching me how to sand drywall and fix questionable electrical wiring. He was undoubtedly a bit of a difficult person, but he walked the walk. I learned a lot from him. Story 58. Wow, this is such a relatable story. I have definitely struggled with that one big passion myth for years. The pigment assessment sounds amazing. Thank you for the tip. I am going to look into that. Your point about how our brains work is very insightful. I had never thought about it that way. Story 59. Wow, this is a seriously insightful post. The what would you do for free? Question from your supervisor is a powerful one. I am definitely filing that away. Thank you for sharing your journey. It is incredibly helpful and reassuring to hear about someone else's struggle to find the right fit. Story 60. My career found me, not the opposite. If you give 100% in what you do, people will notice and give you more responsibilities and chances to grow. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.